Most people think of Saturn as the planet of limits, punishment, and dum dum dum, death. The part of life that tells you no and slams you down. But what if Saturn is really the archetype that teaches us how to hold things, time, emotions, and the boundaries of how life really works? It's about lessons. In this video, we'll explore Saturn as the archetypal great container, the boundaries between chaos and creation, time and physical form. Let's take a closer look at this energy, is how we can work with it instead of avoid it in art, therapy, and in life.
Welcome to Chiron Art Therapy. I'm Maggi Colwell, an art therapist and Jungian. Here we explore archetypal images, personal symbolism in art and dreams, and what your psyche is trying to tell you. If you're ready to dive into your inner world, you're in the right place. Subscribe, and let's begin.
Today we're going to talk about Saturn and the archetypal correspondences that go along with Saturn. And I always joke that everybody doesn't like Saturn. In the old astrology books, it was called the Great Malefic. And yes, it was places of putting pressure on things, or like places that are like holding you back or pressing you down or things like that. However, in astrology, each one of the signs has a power planet, and Capricorns are associated with Saturn. And I'm a Capricorn. I have a happy Saturn, and I will tell you a little bit more about what that means. Saturn is about boundaries. It is the last planet that we can see in the sky with a naked eye. The ancients considered that the last planet. They considered it the boundary of the universe. It's the container of our solar system. Saturn is the god of time. It's a painting by Francisco Goya. It's very famous. It's a horrifying image that was painted between 1820 and 1823. It gets the idea across. Francisco Goya painted a whole bunch of paintings when he was going through a deeply disturbed psychological time, and he was suffering a lot. And one of the images is the images of Saturn eating his own son, which is part of the myth cycle of Greek myth, that the Titans were devouring their children. Then Jupiter comes in, and Jupiter's mother fed Jupiter's a stone instead of Zeus, basically. And then it hit his stomach, and then Zeus was able to come in and take over. It's the old proto gods making way for the current gods in that myth series. But this image, it's so raw because Goya was trying to deal with himself. He was trying to deal with his own forces that felt like they were devouring him and that were just monstrous. He never meant for other people to see these paintings. They were huge. They were in his house. It was not supposed to be stuff that got out there. And then after his death, that was not respected. One of the most famous paintings we have is now all over the place. It was deeply personal. I find that just incredible. That's the concept of Saturn as the malefic, the ender of things, death itself, like time eats its own children, a thing, that it's the great boundary that we can't see beyond. Boundaries, containment, endings of things. We have the image of the Grim Reaper. That's a Saturn image with the scythe to cut down the wheat. That's an image of Saturn. The scythe is a symbol related with Saturn. Those are some typical things that we think about with Saturn. If we think about the lifespan as being cycles of Saturn, the first 28 years is the first piece, and then the next 28 years would be until 56 or so. Then the next 26 years would be 79? Something in there. That's about that. That creates a triangle. The number associated with Saturn is 3. It's the smallest number of sides to a shape that can create an enclosure. Saturn is also about holding, containment, enclosure. Now that we've looked at Saturn symbolically as both devouring and containing energies, I want to walk you into it a little bit deeper so that we can see how this dynamic shows up in therapy, in theory, and in practice. It's the first concept of a womb. Like when I was talking about that, I was actually like drawing it out, where you look at it like that. And then a lot of times when you see triangles in art, it's relating to the delta of Venus instead. So, or a uterus is that shape as well. The idea of appropriate containers, a holding and containing environment, if we're thinking about holding in a vessel, a lot of the mythology talks about space as being the first womb from which things are born out of. The womb itself is the first containment that we all have. That's also related to the boundaries, the containment, the holding space. This is where it gets into something that feels more feminine, of the deep unconscious holding space for things to arise from, for things to gestate from. That's another way to look at it. The metaphors in psychoanalysis talk about creating therapeutic containment or emotional containment, where you feel held. If emotions are like water, it gives it that vessel to hold the water. A glass of water is very different than a puddle on the floor. So that can be a generative thing. But there's also discussions about where holding or containment can be strangulating, where it can be too much, where instead of the holding, it can be suffocating or confining. Like I get the image of a corset or being restrained, that the boundaries are too much. That can be from an outside perspective that we have taken into ourselves, like when you're talking about shame, of somebody's expectations are pushing and holding things too much. It can be societal. That's more of a big picture expectation of who you are. In art therapy, we talk a lot about providing containment through the actual artistic container. I've had some clients that they wind up spilling things and they're all over the place because they have too much energy. I'll give them a tray first. Say, we have to, if you're going to use this pot of paint, you have to put it in the tray first. Your paper and the water has to stay in the tray, that they feel focused and that there's enough of a container to help them direct and focus their energy as well. There's positive aspects to it as well. Wanted to share this image. This is a temporary art piece that I made back in grad school when I was working in hospice. It's a lot of talking about containment as well, about how a lot of times sitting together, especially when it comes to existential concerns, where people, maybe I can't fix anything, but we're sitting with it. We're staring at the abyss together. We're dealing with what's in the beyond that we can't see, that there is a sense of containment. There's a triple containment here. It's like the existential piece that we can't see through is the black mirror. The moss is another type of containment where something new can grow. Then there's the sand tray, which represents the art therapy piece of it. While I was in grad school, I was also getting supervision from my professors as well as through my own personal analysis. And that felt like an external containment that was holding me while I was trying to provide emotional holding space for my clients as well. There's those kind of things that you can play around with. And with the hands cut off, it's a statement relating to a fairy tale called The Handless Maiden that's about women regenerating their own creativity after a period of having their power taken away and of grief. It almost feels like it's the transcendent coming in. It's attached to something else and coming in and imbuing that holding space as well. A lot of my clients deal with boundaries. We do a lot of work on putting yourself out there in the world, being able to speak, knowing what's yours to take care of and what isn't, because a lot of times our society does not encourage women to take care of themselves, to say no, to set limits. That if you're doing anything like that, then you're being harsh or hateful or pushing back. That we're not encouraged to have appropriate boundaries, give no matter what. But then what do you have to set the boundary to just for you? And that's about having healthy relationships with boundaries and containment as well, so that we can be with things but not completely pour ourselves out. It's super important as a therapist too, to not give more than you have. So there's that part of it too. When I was working in hospitals, I got a reputation for being able to work with people with borderline personality disorder too, because one thing that people with that diagnosis need is an example of healthy containment. They don't have their own emotional containment and need support, but they haven't necessarily come to a place where they understand boundaries too. It's either punitive or there are no boundaries. So for me to have a good relationship with my Saturn, to be able to speak clearly and consistently with boundaries without being reactive, is just, here's the rules, here's our agreement, I'm sticking to it. That's what Saturn does. This is the boundary, that it just is. It's actually very reassuring to people when you can stick to that boundary, because, oh, it's not going away. This person, I can actually trust this person, because it means there's some stability there. In astrology, the part of the body that associates with Saturn is bones, which I find interesting. So it's the underlying structure of things. The part that is not going to, bones move at joints, but if you've moved a bone, you've got a problem, right? That's a broken bone. So that's a very different situation than muscle or skin or water, all the water within us. There is a lovely piece, classical music piece by Gustav Holst. That's Holst. And it's called The Planet Suite. And he goes through each one of the planets from the sun on through Pluto. It gives a sensory experience to sit with it as a meditation that you're not going to get from me talking about it. It's very slow moving, which is one of the things I like about this piece. It has that kind of like really slow plod to it with a lot of pausing, especially in the beginning, which really puts this planet for this whole orchestral piece really feels different. I think it feels like the energy of Saturn. It's not swift. It's just not movable. Saturn's returns are like an accounting of where have I been, where have I going. We think about the human life in parts of 3. Saturn creates that space. First, Saturn's return is the gateway, the astrological gateway to adulthood, where people are 28 and a half. You're no longer a child, that's for sure. You have enough life experience that you're starting to figure out, oh, this is how I handle myself in society. You're no longer necessarily within the holding environment of the home, hopefully. You're starting to figure out, who do I want to be in the world? It's that first gateway. And the second gateway, in your mid to late 50s, is a gateway from, I've done all this stuff in the world, established my career, had my children. This is like that gateway of everybody's hit menopause by then. It's not who am I in the world, but it's that Jungian alchemical piece of who am I in relationship to the archetypes? Who am I in relationship to myself? What is the turning inward alchemy that I want to look at for the next 30? It takes 28 and a half years for Saturn to go around the sun. So that's the full heartbeat of Saturn. lengthwise in the human life. So that was pretty cool that you can attune yourself to like feeling these types of things. It's funny, I'm doing this right now in a Saturn's retrograde time where Saturn appears like it's going backwards in the sky. The idea is that we don't have as much energy from the archetype of Saturn right now. It goes direct again in November. It's considered a time to reevaluate, pull your energy in, decide where you want to spend your energy when it starts going forward again. So it's a shuffling of priorities and structures. It means that it's a way to pull your energy in and reevaluate how you want to spend your energy. It's deciding what your priorities and your boundaries are.
Oh, I see. That's for all of us.
We all have all the planets. Your birth chart is based on where all the planets were in the sky when you were born. You think about the like different gravitational fields in the different positions. It's like a mandala. It's an archetypal energetic mandala the second you were born.
Oh.
Where Saturn is right now affects everybody right now. We all still all have the planets. I think what you're asking from is that most people in pop culture are only talking about sun signs of the month that you were born in, rather than looking at where'd I put my chart? This is an image of a full birth chart. It's like a snapshot of the whole sky when you were born. And then each one of the planets are at a different segment. And then how they relate together is how we read that. It's a archetypal pattern of what is the constellation at your birth, if that makes sense. It's the imprint.
This is
Horoscopes is junk. Like you can't say that everybody with a certain sun sign is going to have a certain experience at any given time. Think about this, like all the planets have god names. The ancients thought that these were the gods up in the sky. If you think about this, so this is my conceptualization of it. This is not necessarily like truth of the universe. This is my perception. You think about all of your cells and all of your bacteria and all of your molecules that are all living inside of you that together you call yourself. This is the group being called Maggi, but it contains a heck of a lot of bacteria and fungus and viruses and all this other stuff that isn't human. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then we have the idea of all of the creatures that live on this planet make up this planet. The bacteria, the fungi, the animals, the molecules, the people, the plants, and they're all living together on something that we group call planet Earth or Gaia.
Yeah.
If you think about everything that lives in the solar system, then that could also be considered a unit. And the ancients considered the sun like the energy force, and that everything in the center was like the earth, right? Then that was all around us all the time. That was another layer of unit, right? Measurement. Everything starts to feel connected if you look at things in different scales. There's an incredible little short video called Powers of 10. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It starts to get very confusing about what is micro and macro. And if we look at the sun as the energy force in the center of the solar system becomes its own unit, and the largest things in the solar system are the planets. The things with the largest gravitational field are the planets. So it's saying that there's a relationship there. Astrology came out of that relationship to the archetypal forces that are the gods. And cut ourselves off from even considering like the earth, the ground, the mother nature as having its own intelligence.
And being alive.
Yeah.
You know.
That's like saying my kidney cell rejects me. I don't believe in Maggie exists. Nobody asked the kidney cell. And planetary forces used to be called intelligences. They talk about like the music of the spheres. They're talking about this year-long heartbeat of the planets. That, have you seen those? Oh, I don't know what they're called. Those like astronomical clocks that had the Earth with the little moon that would go around it, and that would like march around the sun, and like it's all clockwork. That's the music of the planets, the music of the spheres
of the universe.
Yeah. If we could dial in a little bit more and talk about Saturn rather than just astrology in general, I want to bring us back to that, about endings, containment, the boundaries of things. Here's a good example. Like, your car works as a combustion engine, right? A tiny bit of fire with a tiny bit of gas into a container, right? But if you have blown head gaskets on your engine's not going to work anymore because the containment's been broken. This is also important with hydraulics. The pressure has to be maintained on the system for it to be able to work. When you put water into it and it presses it, or steam engines are the same thing. It's like the steam has to be contained for there to be a force for it to move. And that containment is super important. It's not all bad. We need structure and containment, and things take time. I think people rail against Saturn when they want there to be limitless expansion. It's Jupiter out of control, limitless power, limitless money, limitless expansion, limitless resources. And not everything's renewable and exponentially expandable. Maybe it is in math, but not in physical reality. Physical reality is its own kind of containment and limitation. People have a real hard time accepting the just limits. I think that's one of the things that people find so tough at age 28 is there's rules at play here that I can't just push my way against. There's structure here that things aren't necessarily. It's like when you're a kid, you're taught to be fair and to share, and then you find out there's all these things that are incredibly cruel and incredibly inequitable, that the rules of how things actually work aren't necessarily what you were hoping for or what you were fed as a child. But the idea is, once you've gotten past your first Saturn's return, if you're in denial, then you're fooling yourself rather than just being naive. It's like you're old enough to know better. It takes a few years. Like the Saturn's return lasts like a year and a half, but sometimes the integration of it can take 3 years. It's like still by 31, 32 is where you get all the fallout from that. I bet you've got another astrological aspect going on somewhere in there too. I would be interested to see what else is. I have a couple of big transits coming up next year and then the year after, and it's going to take several years to finish all of it. But when I started feeling the effects of it like a year before it started, because those planets are now in the sign. It's like the house lit up. Yeah. A lot of activity going on in a house at a time. Maybe that's a feminine aspect of what we're talking about here too. If you're looking at Saturn from different perspectives, in Kabbalah, Saturn is called Binah. It's the Great Sorrowful Mother. It's considered the second tier of the moon. So it's like the cosmic Great Sorrowful Mother. And it says that she's sorrowful because to give birth means that she also knows that means at some point her children have to die. It gets back to that boundary piece, and of death is time and death as well, but it's on a maternal level.